Coming at you from the obscure limitations of what makes a Game Boy Advance game, I'm Jen and this is my review of Crystal Chronicles. In 2003, Final Fantasy returned to the Nintendo in the form of a spin-off called Crystal Chronicles for the GameCube. The title has elements pulled from the main series of Final Fantasy games, but incorporates new forms of battle and multiplayer aspects. Crystal Chronicles was charting new territory, and as a result, some elements fell flat. Okay, most elements fell flat. I had to lift the veil of nostalgia still present from my first playthrough of the game and really examine this title for a review. What I found wasn't pretty. I liked the real-time fighting. It was a nice break from menu-based combat, but the limitations imposed upon myself and fellow caravanners felt stifling, with combat contained to a specific radius extending from the Mur. The lack of world exploration and the addition of a caravan that merely moved you from place to place was another crippling aspect of the game. The overall product was basically Final Fantasy Light. The game was short and offered a very paltry storyline, it had very few levels and environments, and even fewer potential party members. It was also tough to care about any of the characters in-game, including my own. Crystal Chronicles has a lot going against it. It doesn't follow the typical formula for battle, music, or art style, and its hook is very selective and expensive. Multiplayer required everyone to own a Game Boy Advance, which were still fairly costly at the time of release, as well as a link cable, of which only one came with the game. But it was the first title that linked the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube, and for that I will be forever grateful. It paved the way for Zelda's Four Swords Adventure, a game I love to pieces. In 2004, I went through Crystal Chronicles with my two roommates, and I do remember it being a good time. The use of the Game Boy Advance's controllers kept the flow of the multiplayer aspects wonderful, and the screen open to display the amazing graphics. Going back to replay Crystal Chronicles for this review, though, I realized the awesomeness stopped with the multiplayer. I found the game to be very solitary and boring. Battles weren't as challenging, and most of the screen just seemed empty. Plus, I couldn't combine any of my attacks with anyone except for my Moogle, and that's just sad. This game was incredibly pretty, but in the past, I haven't let games off the hook just because they have a pretty face. And just because Crystal Chronicles comes with the Final Fantasy stamp doesn't mean it gets my approval. As a matter of fact, I'm tired of trying to justify this title. It's a money and time sink riding on the coattails of a popular franchise. 2002 to 2004 was a dark time for Final Fantasy. X2 was forcing us to play dress-up, 11 required a lot of network adapters and extra cost for console gamers, and maybe in the light of all the other Final Fantasy noise, Crystal Chronicles seemed like a good idea. But it just wasn't. I mean, if you played this game alone, your sole companion was a whiny Moogle that wanted you to do the grunt work most of the time. Sure, they let you spray paint him as a form of retribution, but I could never seem to get him in the eyes, so it didn't do much for my mounting rage. Crystal Chronicles had charm and was very cute, but it didn't have any of the in-depth elements gamers have come to expect from games in the series. I fear that the hype and popularity behind a Final Fantasy return to Nintendo has clouded the overall judgment of gamers that revere this as an essential title. Even if I back away from this game and treat it as something independent of Final Fantasy, the hook is still the multiplayer. So if you don't have someone to play this game with, all it can offer you is something pretty to look at. If you can manage to find 3 other people who have the time and want to come over and play a multiplayer game from a central location, by all means give this game a shot. But good luck. I'm sure there are still massive supporters of this game out there. I mean, I legitimately love Ring of Fates and Echoes of Time for the DS, and they're also Crystal Chronicle titles, but this game just doesn't do it for me. Maybe it's my lack of friends to play this with, or maybe I have legitimate points. Either way, it's another title tossed into the bin of games Jen used to love, then she reviewed them, and now she's not so sure anymore. Crystal Chronicles isn't the typical solo adventure you're used to, so if you choose to play the game alone, be forewarned. So there you have it. A game that's revolutionary, unique, and completely boring.